Portions of this show are recorded. Strap in and be prepared.
You just heard Baby J about 3 minutes give his entire A to Z on what was going on. I didn't interrupt you.
I don't even like I got to everything, honestly.
No, you didn't get to everything.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, Melissa Lombardi, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I think Dan Lanning sitting in his office going, you know what, fine, give us the toughest road to win the national championship. That's what it should be.
I think that this team is going to go as far as Malik Murphy takes them. There's a lot to like about this offense if he's who we think he could be.
And some smiles.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing working? No, that's why you got to do this. You got to go.
Hello?
Hello? Testing, testing,
it's like the little
testing.
girl in Nemo where she's tapping on the glass.
Fishy! Fishy, wake up, Fishy!
It's Danny Havel.
We have to be more specific. We have a lot of pickle things going on,
know.
apparently.
Justin Grossweiner.
I've been wrong before, but that's what I think.
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport.
Hello, neighbors, and welcome high top the Delta Triad, the Crystal Palace of the Bigfoot Beverages Studios in Eugene and Newport. You're locked into the fastest 60 minutes in sports talk. It's the Danny and Justin radio program. Follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky, Danny and Justin. Follow the stations at Fox Sports Eugene, Fox Sports Newport. Follow us right here, wherever you're listening, in the Valley at 102.9 FM, 1050 AM, and also on the coast at 92.7 FM. If you want a pod and you don't want to listen to it live or can't listen to it live because, you know, that work thing gets in the way, well, I would suggest then go ahead and do the podcast. You know, we're everywhere. Just look up Danny and Justin. Like, follow, subscribe. Give us some stars if you like. You know, distribute stars because that's a good thing to do. Spread a little love. There's a lot of love going on in Autzen Stadium. Not so much up at Research Stadium, but we'll talk about all of that. Here's some audio from Dan Lanning, from Trent Bray. We're going to have George Wrighster, the minister, on the program. But first, I'm Danny Howell. Right over there is my tag team partner, Justin Grossweiner. We call him Baby J. What a boy!
It was almost perfect weekend of football. You mentioned the Beavers.
Yeah.
2 out of my 3 fantasy teams look like they're going to win. So, a couple blemishes.
I got worked last night. The guy I was playing, he had Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers.
Great game, by the way.
Incredible game.
Incredible game.
I just wish somebody would have played defense for a little while.
People are talking about it as one of the greatest comebacks of all time.
I
think
wouldn't go that
there's some
far.
legitimacy to it, honestly.
No.
It was, the odds of that happening, very, very low.
The greatest comeback of all time was actually still in Buffalo. Oilers, Bills.
The Music City. No, sorry.
No. This was 35-3 in the
Music
playoffs.
City. It makes sense.
No, just go back and look at that. Bills.
Oh, yeah, they came back like 31 points.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Wasn't
it the backup quarterback?
Yeah, it was. I
think it was the backup, yeah.
It was Frank Reich.
Yeah.
That was a magical year from our leaving in that team.
Okay, that's fair. But also, in terms of just late, I mean, it's like a 6-run comeback in the 9th inning or something like that. Like, it's just different in football because you only have so much time.
If I'm John Harbaugh right now, I am chewing nails about his defense. Just chewing nails. So,
well, you can't get mad at Derrick Henry because he had about 1 billion yards and then he fumbled it.
Yeah, big fumble.
Big fumble, but I mean,
but that's Derrick Henry sometimes. Listen, Derrick Henry has coughed the football up,
and a lot of the best running backs do at times.
Get hit like that. So,
well,
we've got Dan Lanning coming up with some of his post game comments, and Trent Bray had his press conference today. So we'll hear from both of those coaches. We'll talk a lot about Oregon. And overreaching, well, I want to talk about Dante Moore specifically with the minister, George Wrighster, who's coming up at about 2:20 today. George dislikes this whole power ranking thing that people are doing, absolutely despises it. So we'll talk to him about that and what he's got that's better. I think we have a question of him about his pick of Clemson being in the national championship game and actually winning the whole thing. Do they look as well? And this, Justin, goes back to my point where we talked about the preseason rankings. And the reason we're bringing up Clemson is that they were less than impressive against Troy, was it?
Yeah.
And they were behind at half.
Right.
At home against a team that was literally like a Montana State-Oregon matchup. I don't know if I believe in Clemson. I don't know if I believe in several of these teams that had quote unquote big marquee wins in the first week.
Right.
And that's what you don't know. You're rolling the dice until you get somebody that is a proven quantity.
Sure.
Talk to me in October type of game.
And obviously Oregon just played Oklahoma State, so it's not like they have played anybody super crazy. But just thinking about LSU, and they're now ranked number 3. Why? Because they beat Clemson, and we had this perception of Clemson that they were going to be this really great team. So, of course, if Clemson loses to LSU, then LSU must be this really great team. Then I think that we're going to look back at these rankings 6 or 7 weeks from now and just laugh.
And again,
because it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's all based off of nothing, like you're saying.
Paper tiger. LSU's a paper tiger.
Well, they're both paper tigers.
They're both paper tigers. We fold them up, we wad them up, when we put them in the trash.
We're not big on
bin.
either of these teams.
No, we aren't, as you can tell. So if you're a lot of Clemson fans or LSU fans within the sound of our voice are listening to the podcast, my apologies. I hope you prove me wrong by the end of the year, but it doesn't look like it right now. The eye test is not showing me that. But this goes back to, and I know why we have them. I cannot buck the system when it comes to this, but I can live in my own little bubble if I want. Why can't we just start rating and ranking teams the 1st of October after we've got 4 or 5 games under our belt? Why can't we?
Do you know why?
Well, I know why. It's because
then we don't have a game like Texas and Ohio State where you can say, well, this is the number 1 versus the number 3. And
we
you
don't
hype
have
it up and you make a bunch of money because everybody's going to watch.
Right. Television can't say it's the number 1 and number 2 matchup.
Exactly.
Number 1 versus number 3.
It's all about the money. It's the first rule.
I mean, but that it bothers me a bit is that don't those matchups, the Texases against the Ohio States or the Michigans against the Oklahomas, don't you think they're going to already have eyeballs on it? Now, Oklahoma and Michigan was not even a top 15 matchup for both teams. Yet it had the most eyeballs this weekend, and it was a pretty good football game.
Well, those are huge brands. I mean, which is your point.
That is my point.
But
so why do we need to put a number in front of them?
I think there's a lot of excitement about coming into the year, which there would be maybe if you had some. I don't know.
I'm not going to win the argument.
Like,
That's just it.
Yeah, like you're just not. I mean, the rankings are just going to be a thing, and they kind of run the sport. Is the thing.
It gets to the point where I am shaking my shillelagh from the porch, trying to knock a mole out of my yard.
Battles. My mom was really big with me whenever I wouldn't want to do something like that everybody would have to do, and she'd say, "Justin, you just have to pick your battles." And I think this is your situation with that.
So, by the way, in terms of picking battles, quick results from this weekend's big bets. I went 4-1. You and Goose went 2-3. Coach went 2-3. Brad, by the way, Brad, I did say this on the show before we started. Brad, you're not eligible for the prize this week because you won the prize last week. You went 4-1, and the best we mustered was 2-3. You're still going to get your prize from the first week, but unfortunately, and Brad, you can keep picking every week. I want your picks. Call in, all right? But you're not eligible for the prize for 30 days. That's kind of the station rules, the overreaching station rules. That's for everybody, so we have to play fair. This is not outside of the station rules, okay? So, but now season-wise, I'm 5-5, and you and Goose are 4-6. So my horrible opening week was salvaged a bit. And so now Goose is picking the games this week, so Friday we'll do big bets again. So everybody participating, thanks for playing.
I feel lucky to even be 4-6, if we're being honest.
Well, listen,
some of the flags I've planted haven't really worked out.
Hey, listen, I was a 2-point conversion in overtime from going 5-0. The only game I lost was SMU.
I felt really good about that
overtime.
Iowa pick, and Iowa was in it until the bitter end.
We had really close games.
I know.
I mean, that was a 16-13 game.
Yeah, and Iowa turned it over at the end of the game.
Yeah, another good football game.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you want to do? You want to do Oregon State first and get that carnage out of the way, or you want to do Oregon first?
Sure. Let's do that.
Okay, so first part of the program, let's talk about Oregon State. So here's the highlights. Let's start with the highlights, and then let's kind of dive into it before we start giving our assessment. Malik Murphy was graded out per the PFF. I don't know what that stands for, but I'm
Pro Football Focus.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
And they grade players on a scale of 1 to 100, which 80 to 90
is a good score.
That's like 90 is like elite.
Okay, so
if you're like, I think he was an 88.
Right. So no, he was 89.4. Malik Murphy was an 89.4.
Elite.
Okay.
They graded him out as elite because it's not based off of results. Okay. It's based off of just like an individual grade of the way that it basically like your job. So like say that you are a lineman and you have a great block and the play doesn't end up being a big rush, you'll still get graded out positively.
371 yards through the air, 4 touchdown passes, 31 of 48. They threw the ball a lot. Anthony Hankerson had 136 yards on 25 carries. He's now over 1,250 yards for his Beaver career, ranking him 36th. Malik Murphy rated out, and this is per Isaac Streeter, who tweeted this out. And Isaac, our good buddy from the Portland Tribune, Mustang. Malik Murphy, 89.4. Taz Reddix, who had 11 catches, 158 yards, led the Beavers in both receiving yards and catches. 4 of their Beavers hauled in scores as well. He scored an 85.9, and they also do the linemen and stuff. It's like, if you're giving up a sack or, you do great protection.
Just explain it, yeah.
So Nathan Alou, the right tackle, had an 81.
Which is really solid.
All right, so that's the good news. The bad news is the Beavers are 0-2, and they could spiral to 0-4 before they get to the last week of September. And this would be disastrous. They lose 37-26 to Fresno State. A late pick 6 makes that game. Beavers had the football. They had a chance to drive down the field and win the game at this point because they were only down by 2, and a pick 6, and that was it. And that was all she wrote. And actually, I think they had to score a touchdown, not a field goal. That's right. They had to score a touchdown, not a field goal. So, it's just it's unfortunate.
No, now they were down 27-29.
Okay, so it was a 2-point game.
It was a 2-point game.
All right. So I was right the first time. Don't doubt yourself, young man. The Danny just
sorry to correct you.
No, I want it to be accurate because actually my eyes were bleeding just going through this. Losing to Fresno State at home in a game where you had to try and bounce back after getting dominated a bit by Cal. So there were signs of life for the Beavers, fortunately, but they just could not sustain it. And there were several things that fell apart. But let's hear from Trent Bray first, the head coach, on what the coaching staff did in reviewing the tape and what they saw.
After watching the film from Saturday, it was what I thought it was, which was very pleased with offense and defensively how they responded and played. A lot of really good stuff. Played hard, made plays. There was encouraging things of we are the team we can be. We obviously know what led to that loss, but we got to get that cleaned up because the way we played on offense and defense was very encouraging. There's no question. Texas Tech is obviously very talented, and so they got skill, they got quarterback, they got offensive line, defensive players. They've got a lot of talent.
So we're going to talk about Trent Bray after we're done listening to Trent Bray, totally, because Justin and I both have some concerns, and it's the first thing that went viral, and actually went viral during the game. This had to do with Trent Bray's the little silly interview as the coaches are running. This is why I don't like those interviews when
coaches.
This is
the only reason why it's notable is if something like this happens.
As they're running off the field, somebody sticks a microphone in front of them and asks a question, and especially if there's something emotional going on, sometimes coaches don't hold back, and Trent Bray didn't hold back. But we'll talk about that in a second. So there was a little nugget that you could pull out. And by the way, Goose, I just saw your text. I'm going to go back to the tape, and I think you're right. Oregon State opened up the second half with an 11-minute, 16-second, 18-play drive for a touchdown. That spanned just 75 yards. I say just, but it took 18 plays to do it, so they were doing a little Texas two-step. The longest drive of the season in terms of time. But it's also about having more of those and sustaining drives for Trent Bray.
Yeah, the efficiency of how they played. And that's something that we didn't have the week before against Cal. So to see that improvement and be able to sustain a drive is very hard to do just in general. And for them to be able to do that and go down and put 6 points on the board was huge. I thought there were just a lot of great responses, tough situations. Fresno got the ball inside the 20 late in the game. We're able to hold them to a field goal, which gave us an opportunity. The offense came back out the next drive and went down and took the lead at the end of the game. So there was a lot of stuff that was good to see that I wouldn't have said showed up in game one. So that improvement's good, and we got to take another step this week.
And, of course, one player that took a big step from last week to this week, and they say the biggest point of improvement for a football team on the season
should be from 1 to 2.
Week 1 and week 2. So one guy that definitely did that, you already mentioned his PFF grade, Malik Murphy, who had 48 pass attempts, if you can believe, for a Beavers quarterback, but 371 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have the 2 interceptions. And Coach Bray talks about his improvement and what changed from week 1 to week 2.
The conversations were with him and Coach Gunderson, and just spending time, with the offense and understanding the game plan and I think why the ball needs to go a certain place. So I think he just bought into that and worked really hard during the week to make sure he was on top of his reads and where the ball needed to go when they gave us this certain look. So I thought he did a tremendous job of improving in that area on Saturday.
Beavers had the lead with 1:19 left in the game, 27-26. They give up a field goal with 29 seconds left to go down 29-27, and then the Jakari Embry 45-yard interception as Malik Murphy is trying to drive the Beavers into field goal position to win the game is picked off. 16 points surrendered in the fourth quarter. They blanked Fresno State and took the lead in the third quarter. So, again, if you want to look at positives, look at positives. And that's what Coach Bray needs to do in this room. And so the discussion is how do you keep the players optimistic after starting out 0-2?
I don't think it's hard, especially with the guys that we got on the team. But then when you watch the film, it's there. The proof is on the tape of what they're capable of being. I became more encouraged about this team after watching the tape, as disappointed as I was with the result and what happened. When you watch the offense, when you watch the defense and what they did, it is very encouraging we're the team we think we can be if we can eliminate, like I said, those self-inflicted things that took place on Saturday.
So the incident we mentioned at the beginning of this, and by the way, thanks for tuning in, Danny and Justin here on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport, as we roll through a Monday, recapping Oregon and Oregon State's football weekend, is special teams for Oregon State. And a big blunder in the first half. Jamie Christian, who is the special teams coordinator, has been with the Oregon State program since 2024, but well-traveled. He's been a coach in a lot of different stops for over 15 years. And it was just said as Bray was coming off the field. And so, of course, the media is going to ask Trent Bray today about what was addressed with the special teams coordinator after the game.
Yeah, we talked yesterday after the team meeting and just reminded him, like, we've got all the confidence in the world. And, I mean, we've seen him do it in game. Like, it's what happened on Saturday, I don't think anyone could have ever expected or, thought would happen. But I expect him to bounce back and respond and do a great job on Saturday. As far as talks with Coach Christian, there's some of that stuff, like he can't affect how that ball's snapped. I mean, then that was really the number one main issue of what happened on Saturday. So there's some things schematically. They had a return that got called back that we can't allow to happen. But there are some things that are outside of his control that took place.
So Oregon State opens up as a 23.5-point underdog on the road to Texas Tech. And there are still those that want to look at the glass half full, that want to say Oregon State bounces back in a huge way and pulls off the big upset against Texas Tech. I don't see it right now. My gut telling me is that there's a real chance that this team is looking over a cliff right now. And all it needs is one little push. It kind of, to me, Justin, feels like last year after the Nevada-Reno loss, when Oregon State goes in and they got knocked around a little bit after starting out really well in the season. And it was like, if you get this Nevada-Reno win, you can take a couple more and you could be a 7-win team, or at worst a 6-win team, and go to a bowl. And they were favored. I don't know what they were. They were favored to be by a couple of touchdowns against Reno. And they lose that game, and it kind of felt like the bottom fell out of that team after that game. And unfortunately, it feels like really early on in this season, this is the possibility here. Am I just crazy?
I think the devil's advocate position is that one of the favorite phrases I like from our future commissioner of college football, Josh Pate, is wounded animal mode. And I think that that's a place that you either sink or you swim. The Beavers now are 0-2, and it's put up or shut up. You have to just play your best football. So there's times where I think this kind of situation can galvanize a team. And so would I be surprised if they came out there and against Texas Tech at least gave them their best shot? Yes, I would not be surprised if they came out there and it was a great game. Could they win it? Sure. Can we sit here today and talk about how we're going to expect them to win that game? I don't think there's any way we can sit there and say that because of the way they've been playing. It just feels like there's just things that have come up short that you're not going to be able to have success against great teams. I mean, because they haven't even had success against decent teams. We don't really even know how good Cal or Fresno State is, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, and we've got some other thoughts, but we've got to get to a break because we've got the minister waiting. So we've got another thought that we'll bring up in the last part of the program about Trent Bray and his leadership and just maybe a little unsolicited advice from two knuckleheads down in Eugene who want Oregon State to be successful. So don't take what I just said in the last segment like I'm rooting for Oregon State. That is the exact opposite. Good play on the field makes good content for radio. Believe me, I've known it throughout the years. But speaking of good content, the minister, George Wrighster, is going to be with us next to preach about the Ducks, the Beavs, the state of college football on the Danny and Justin radio program. We had to go to the tape, and there's a correction on big bets. Goose actually took Iowa State, not Iowa. So Goose went 3-2, not 2-3. Still didn't win the week as I won it with 4-1. I just have to mention that as well. But now he's an even 5-5 with me. Baby J, you're one game behind.
Yeah. I'm not feeling super great about the start of the year.
We'll see. We'll see who Goose picks as games this week, as we'll do big bets every Friday. Let's head on over to the Oregon Man Clinics hotline at 541-343-5673 and welcome our good friend, the minister. You know him from the Unafraid show. He is also doing some things with Aaron Fentress, I believe. He's doing Ducks Confidential, and he also has his great podcast as well. It's George Wrighster joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at George Wrighster. We call him the minister. How was your weekend of football, George?
Man, it was good. Only one more update for you guys. So I will be, when you turn on the Miami South Florida game, if you look into the pregame on CW, you will see my mug.
Woo!
That's right.
Nice. Way to go. The rest of the season then? Or just this week?
Yes. No. We will be there. We will be there like the furniture.
Atta boy. Good job, George. Way to spread the good word. So let's start with Oregon and talk about good words. Not a lot of bad words, but Tasha Lupoy and Chris Hampton, that defensive staff's going to still look at something and go, you know what, why'd we give up 3 points? And they're going to try and find all those mental errors to keep those kids moving forward. But what a performance by Dan Lanning's squad against Oklahoma State.
Oh, yes. That was a dominating performance in literally every single aspect except special teams. And the only reason why you couldn't dominate in special teams is because you only got, 2 kickoff returns the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
And the punts were fair catches for the most part. I think pretty much all of them. And you only punted once. Like, you punted for the first time this whole season, and you missed a very long field goal. So I don't think that, that special teams just gets a C because I don't think it was enough gradable data. Oh, but you did have a punt down inside the 10-yard line, I think. So, yeah, I give it a B-.
All right. Well, you're a tough grader, Minister. George Wrighster joining us on the Oregon Man Clinics hotline, breaking down this past weekend of football and looking ahead to what upcomes. So let's stay on Oregon just for a second. And as a player, last year we were looking at, and we had the issues with the offensive line and how Oregon kind of just, I don't want to say limped out of the gate, but they had things they definitely needed to work on very hard to get themselves ready, and look what happened, a 13-0 regular season. It seems like the gate is open a little bit wider, and a lot of players are getting in on both sides of the football. So as a player, how strong now is that unit getting built for Dan Lanning's squad? Because he's able to send 7 receivers out, send 5 running backs out, send 3 quarterbacks out. And I'm not even talking about the defensive side of the football yet. So how much stronger is this team going to be in November because of what they're doing in September?
Well, I think even bigger than that, it bodes well not just for this year, but it bodes in terms of strength, because it's going to make the team stronger this year, but it bodes well for next year because you keep those guys happy because they are on the field, and then you keep them hungry because they get just a little bit of taste, but then they see people in front of them playing extremely well, so they're like, yo, bro, like I understand why that guy is on the field in front of me. And they are able to honestly assess for themselves, like, hold up, am I a year away from this? Because this is the level that I aspire to play at. So am I going to ever reach that level, or do I need to, if I'm not, I need to find somewhere else to go? And if I can reach that level, then I got to go back to work. I got to get in the lab so I can eventually get on this football field.
One of the things that impressed me the most of this Oregon offense, it wasn't necessarily just the numbers. It was about the skill position players and how much effort they blocked in this game. Just how impressed were you with what the skill position player and just the offensive line in general? I guess you could just call it the blocking as a whole. How much did that impress you, even though it is a team like Oklahoma State who we don't expect to be very good at the end of the season?
Well, see, I'm glad you brought up the skill position players compared to the offensive line, because the offensive line, their literal job is to block. So yes, you give them credit when they do a good job, but you can't give them extra kudos before, for doing their job. But the skill position players, I think they live by the rule of no block, no rock. And they're actually taking pride in it. And even a freshman like Decorian Moore continuously showing up on finishing blocks. That means that anybody else, if you want to get on that field, hey, you do what that guy's doing in front of you, and you got a shot.
Who does Decorian Moore remind you of after now we've seen him for a couple games?
I know that this is going to sound funny, but I don't think that we've had a comp for him.
Okay.
At Oregon, at least since I've been watching the Ducks, I don't think that we have one, because we're looking at a guy who is a high-level wide receiver, who's going to be a high-level wide receiver as an outside guy, plus the ability to line up in the backfield, return punts, and be dynamic. Some people are going to use the DeAnthony Thomas, comp, but DeAnthony was more of a hybrid type player. He wasn't a true running back that you could hand the ball to 20 times a game. He wasn't a number one wide receiver, but he was a threat. Like, he was a playmaker. And I do think that you're going to have with Decorian a guy who can be a number one wide receiver. So it's going to be different. So it's like a combination of DeAnthony Thomas with a dominant wide receiver. I mean, and if we're being honest, right? If we're being honest, when is the last time, Danny, that Oregon had a number one, like a special guy? And I know that Troy Franklin, he was really good, and he was a number one type guy. But I'm talking about a wide receiver that could potentially be a first round pick, or likely to be a first round pick.
Yeah, you're getting me to scratch my head, because I can think of a lot of names throughout the years, but to say that guy was a solid number one, I don't think there was.
Yeah, I mean, when have we had a Garrett Williams, Emeka Buka? I'm not even talking about the Jeremiah Smith in terms of physical. I'm talking about a guy who is just, a Crabtree, or like a guy who you can throw the ball to 20 times a game if you need to.
Well, we agree with you, Minister. To the great George Wrighster joining us. Check him out on the Unafraid Show on YouTube. Follow, subscribe, like it. He's also spreading his wisdom now. Going to be on the CW right before all of the games that they broadcast throughout the season, so you can lock into him on the pregame there. We're talking a little number 6, now number 4 Oregon football with the 69-3 thrashing of Oklahoma State. And the questions and the eyeballs were all on Dante Moore before the season because transferring back from UCLA, basically sitting, learning, and watching from Dylan Gabriel, getting another year of comfort under Will Stein's offense. I don't think you could grade this guy below almost perfect in the first 2 games. No interceptions. I think, 6 touchdowns. Part of that was only in half a game of work. So give me your impression of Dante Moore and how he's wrapped his arms around this Duck offense.
Man, the best thing that I saw out of him was in the first game when he ran the ball early and he got up and he was fired up. Because the questions around Dante Moore have never been about talent, arm ability, anything like that. It was, does he have the mental fortitude to be able to do this at a high level? And he was a kid that I gave a mulligan to because my wife's a big UCLA fan. And I think it was in their last game against Cal. He got his helmet knocked off. He had a shiesty on. He just sat there on the ground. And she was like, he quit right there. And there is some truth to that. And that was my question about Dante. I was like, can he get himself up off the mat? And when you look at what he did in terms of transferring to Oregon, because, kids hop in the portal and he was a big-time player, so he could have transferred somewhere and started immediately. But instead, he said, you know what, I'm going to go sit behind Dylan Gabriel. I'm going to learn. I am going to get better and grow. And that's what he's done. And when you look at those Oregon videos and you think about all the leadership stuff that they do, think about how much better of a leader that the kid has become as from a 17, 18-year-old kid to now, 20 years old. And he's sitting there a leader of men and a leader of himself now. So I'm excited about him, and I'm excited about his future.
George Wrighster with us. George, one of the things I was interested about coming into this game was the pecking order in that running back room. And I think we were going to start to see a little bit more of it in this game against Oklahoma State, and I think we did. Noah Whittington, he looks like he's a little bit different than he was last year. Might have been a little bit banged up, and he was super-duper explosive. Do you think that he could be that guy this year for the Ducks as that starting running back?
Ooh. Okay. Okay. Here's the honest truth, and I always vow to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I believe that Noah Whittington is a very good running back. I think he is better than Jordan James. However, I don't think he rises to the level of, I should say he hasn't shown, whether it's because of injury or being young, the ability to be special like a Bucky Irving was special, or like any of the other backs that Oregon has had that have been tremendously special. So all the things I said about the wide receivers, Oregon has had the opposite fortunes at running back, completely opposite. We've had some dudes. And so there was a point in time in the game. It was a pass play, I think, on the either
the Corey
Moore's touchdown, and Noah stepped up against a blitzer and just stoned him. And you were like, okay, he's about that physical life. And he knows the offense, knows where he's going, and he's got goals. So I'm going to give him a shot. But I do want to point at some of these young guys, in De'Aaron Hill and Jordan Davidson. Those two dudes, both of them have the ability to be special. Not like, I'm talking about like NFL special, highly potentially drafted backs. That's the difference. We're like Lamar, he's a good back. He's of the same ilk, I think, as Noah Whittington, and that's really the blessing of the position is that you bring in a guy like Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, who ran for 2,800 yards over the last 2 seasons and is a very, very good back, and you put him in a room with these dudes, and he doesn't stand out at this point in time. So that lets you know the depth and talent and the possibility of the room.
George Wrighster from The Unafraid Show joining us. You can follow him on Twitter as well, George Wrighster with a GH and an S. And I know I was looking at the schedule. You guys got Southern Utah. You got a bye week for Cal Davis, right? This week, UC Davis. Southern Utah next week, right? Okay. We're still following it, George. I'm still following. I'll watch your kid. I don't know if he's going to redshirt this year or not, but I'm hoping he can break in there somehow.
Yeah, we'll see, because he came off an injury. He had surgery. So we'll see. He's doing really good in practice, had a good camp. So I'm actually very excited about his future. But obviously, health is wealth in this business.
Absolutely it is. Ohio State's new number 1. Penn State follows LSU 3, Oregon 4 in the AP rankings. But I want to talk about one of your favorite subjects, and I don't call what you do rant. I call what you do truth, the FPI. Talk to me about the ESPN Football Power Index. Oregon sits as number 1 right now, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, Alabama 4, USC at 5. Minister, go.
Okay. This lets you know how much of a truther that I am about this. Because as an Oregon man, if I can sit up here and look at the FPI, where Oregon is now ranked number 1, and find fault, this lets you know that this is truth being spoken. It makes no sense. It is an algorithm, and yes, the computer spits out things, but the people format it, right? So Oregon jumped 6 spots to number 1 after beating one of the worst Power 4 teams in America in Oklahoma State, and they beat an FCS team, and that gets you to number 1. Iowa State beat a Big Ten team who's going to win 9 games this year probably, and they fell 7 spots to number 31. Alabama, after losing to Florida State, went up 9 spots to number 4. And mind you, Alabama finished last season in front of Oregon, in front of Michigan, and in front of one other team that they played last season, last year's Alabama's team. They lost 4 games, finished in front of Oregon and a bunch of other teams that had better records and beat them. So Alabama up 9 spots to number 4 after beating ULM, who's not good this year.
No.
And then Florida State, who beat them, is sitting at number 26.
Preach.
Miami, after a blowout win this weekend and already beating Notre Dame, fell 6 spots to number 21, while 0-1 Notre Dame, who they beat, is sitting at number 10. USF is still 15 spots behind the Florida Gators, despite being 2-0 and having another ranked win over Boise State, and Florida looking just okay, and they beat Florida up. Arkansas jumped up 10 spots to number 18 after wins against, tell me what school this is, Danny. AAMU.
We were trying to figure it out the other day. I don't know. Is it Alabama something A&M?
I have no idea. I'm not even going to try. And beating Arkansas State. How does this make any sense?
It doesn't.
I mean, this is exact. And you might be saying, George, it's just an algorithm. Why does it matter?
It does.
Because when the SEC decided to go to 9 conference games, the only reason why they did it is because they wanted the strength of schedule metric used by the ESPN FPI included in the guidance for the playoff committee. So that's why it matters, because when you're looking at who's going to get in the playoff, Alabama, with these metrics, would have gotten in the playoff last year. Alabama, Come on, man. And everybody knows that they didn't deserve to be in. Hell, South Carolina might have got in too, maybe Ole Miss. They wanted to be the SEC Invitational. This is ridiculous. Tennessee flying up the rankings after beating East Tennessee State Tech, DeVry University. Stop it.
We're with you, Minister. And I'm glad you bring the truth and you bring that sensibility. We all need that, and that's why we love having you on the program. Hey, bud, we're going to let you go. Our best to Damon as he travels through his college football career, and always to the best your entire family. You take care of them, and thanks for being a good friend of us.
Yep. All right, thanks.
See ya. There he goes. Great minister, George Wrighster. Man, ended with a bang. Dan Lanning coming up next. We're going to hear from him. We'll talk, if we have time, our thoughts about Trent Bray's little tiff, little kerfuffle on the sidelines at the half of the Fresno State game when Danny Justin continues here for Monday. Always fun to catch up with the minister, George Wrighster, and he breaks news. I hear right here on the program he's going to be on the CW doing the pregames, which is great. You follow George Wrighster. You can also listen to him right here on the program. We call him the minister. And the Unafraid Show is a good listen on YouTube, so subscribe him there. And if you missed the interview with George, go back to our podcast, which will be published shortly on all the podcast platforms. Subscribe, and give us a star, Danny and Justin. All right, so let's get to more audio with Dan Lanning. 69-3 thrashing, as I said, of Oklahoma State before 57,266 of our closest friends. After jumping out to a 59-6 lead over Montana State, and that, by the way, Montana State has now scored the only touchdown against Oregon in the first two games because, obviously, 3 points, it's not equal to a touchdown. So it does bear the question, though, is preparation for these teams. As Northwestern is upon us, player prep, coaching players, how to prepare for a game, very important. Dan Lanning addresses.
We put a real emphasis on, our openers, our opening script, what plays do we feel really confident about that are going to get us positive yards regardless. And I think our offensive staff has done an unbelievable job game planning those situations and our players knowing exactly, what to expect. I always feel like, players, if they know what coach is about to call, that's when you have the most success. They're anticipating what's next. And when we're able to, dictate the situation to our guys, let them know this is how it's going to play out, and then it plays out that way, that's a real positive.
I know you were watching it here, Justin, with Brian in the studio. I was there, and literally after the second touchdown, 3 offensive plays, 2 touchdowns, I looked up at the clock. There were 13 minutes left in the first quarter, and I thought, what is going on? Literally, that explosion blew me away. My brother Chris did the whole thing. I told you about this yesterday. He did one of those, let's expand this out, how many. He said if they go on this pace, they're going to score 243 points.
Yeah, it felt very similar to the Montana State game, which after a couple possessions, look over at Ken Woody, and he said, I don't think this one's going to be very close. So it was kind of the same thing. But Dan Lanning, he's all about the little things. We got a couple interesting cuts here. First of all, talking about, hey, you got some deep shots, but Dan Lanning likes the little things.
We want to be a team that can beat you, by air and by land, and, that showed up today. So we have some real deep threats. We have good those plays. Everybody's going to give credit to the quarterback and the wideout, but the key to that is unbelievable protection. I think, the very first one, I want to say Jaden Lamar had a great block, in the core, and the offensive line held up, against some guys that are good pass rushers. So it's a big win for us.
Same block that George Wrighster referred to in our interview about 10 minutes ago. Of course, defense, really good job. 3 points allowed. But
16 points in 2 games.
Dan Lanning, of course, he's going to have things that he wants to work on. So what are those things, Dan?
The run game, I think we can be better at. We're going to see what we're like blocking and shedding blocks. You're not going to get holding calls at the end of the game in a situation like that, and there probably were a few, but that doesn't change our standard. Ultimately, this is one of our better defensive performances since we've been here. I thought the coaching staff was really dialed. Coach Lapoy and the staff did a good job of knowing what we wanted to be able to prevent. This has been a team that's usually able to create a lot of explosive plays. You didn't necessarily see that today.
Well, so for this staff now, it's what are you going to use to motivate you this week? Because there was some motivation last week.
I told our team right before the game that, it never requires extra motivation for an opportunity to go out and kick ass, but it never hurts when somebody pours gasoline on the fire. So I felt like these guys wanted the chance to go prove who they are. And I'm sure I got a lot of respect for Coach Gundy, but I probably his press conference, he's probably saying, "See, I told you so." Right? Like that's probably what his comment is, but that doesn't change the way we have to play to be a winning football team. And we have good players, one of our best. I don't know, Bryce Betcher played good today. He came here for a backpack and a t-shirt. So I'm really proud of those guys on our team that, have developed into great players. Again, the guys that watched other people play last year are now playing for us. Like that's what makes this team great.
And I think one of the things that makes Dan Lanning great is that as a head coach, it always seems like he knows the right thing to say.
It's a fine line between being arrogant and being confident. And I get the sense more in this team that they have confidence rather than arrogance. And I was listening to somebody else talk about the difference between, and complaining on high about NIL and transfer portal. You know what? Listen, it's what it is. The toothpaste's out of the tube. We're not squeezing it back in. So honestly, stop complaining about that and figure out how you're going to win within the rules and the system that you have in front of you. Stop it already. And if you don't get on board with it, there will definitely be the haves and the have-nots. And so, yes, if it's an arms race, fine. But I'll guarantee you, just like Justin, in our careers, we will encounter or we'll hire people that we think are going to be great, but they don't end up being great. Just because you're spending the money doesn't mean you are going to assemble the best team. Get the right parts, but then you got to put them all together. And that's where the coaching staff comes in.
Absolutely. And this is a incredibly prepared coaching staff. And one of the things that I think is going to be the most interesting thing is how future teams address the Ducks, because clearly whatever Coach Gundy said, not the right decision.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Mum's the word.
Right. So I'm going to be interested to see what Northwestern even says this week with Oregon coming in and what they sort of. It's another difference in programs, right? In terms of the revenue.
We're going to get some audio from the presser because we can get it from the Northwestern head coach. And it was very complimentary. I got to listen to it.
Very complimentary.
And I think that's the line that they're going to toe because they know who they're going up against.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about the other side of this, unfortunately. And I'm going to address it right back because it is the elephant in the room that everybody knew about, and we addressed it at the top of the program. And you and I talked about it at length yesterday when you came over to the house to watch. By the way, go Pack Go against the Lions.
Looking good.
They're looking good. Looking fine.
All right, back to the Beavers.
We're very excited. We're very excited. But let's talk about the Beavers real quick. Trent Bray does not have the juice card to do what he did at halftime when he basically F-bombed his special teams on camera in front of a microphone. He does not have the length and tenure of being a head coach to be able to say that. In my opinion, he does not have. Take that in the locker room, that you're showing a crack now where things are coming apart, and that is not what you want to send a message out to everyone. And it exploded when it went out there.
Yeah, I just don't think it was the right thing to say at the time for Trent Bray specifically. I mean, we were talking about this. If Nick Saban comes on at halftime and says that, then everybody's going to be like, okay,
Ryan Day,
they really need to fix their special teams.
Brent Bielema. We could name 20 guys that have 10 years or more of a head coaching experience that definitely could say that, and it would not be given the same reaction as what happened with Trent Bray.
Agree.
So hopefully this is a learning moment for that entire coaching staff, and I'm sure it was addressed by the administration afterwards because the AD was not happy with it either.
And this is the second week in a row that it happened.
Well, and they picked up players on the field with ref mics, and that happens. Listen, that happens all the time. I've been down on the field. I've heard it over and 100%. Over again. So that was just a bad mic. No, absolutely not.
Oh, a joke.
I got fired from the bank today. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her.
Dad jokes.
I made a decision this weekend, Baby J.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Not buying anything with Velcro.
Why not?
It's a total ripoff.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's a ripoff once you get it, too.
Tomorrow on the program, it's pretty exciting. Playoff baseball at PK Park. The Eugene Emeralds won the second half. One win away from 50 wins in the second half. They're going to host the first two games of the Northwest League Championship Series. We will have the Godfather here in the program getting outfitted for his pinky ring. Matt Dompe will join us live in studio tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. And get your tickets to go watch the M's tomorrow night. Great program. Thanks again to George Wrighster, Baby J. Well done. We'll talk again tomorrow right here in the fastest 60 minutes. Put a smiley face on someone else's. They deserve it. So do you. God bless and peace.